Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Easy Hard versus Hard podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping you find the work that actually matters in your life. For those of you who are watching on video today, please excuse the background. As some of you know, I'm at my house. I'm creating a new studio, but this week I'm on the road. I have attended a CEO summit at Liberty University, which has been a great week where they bring in CEOs from all over the country, all different disciplines, and you get to interact with students, go to seminars and panels, and just learn about what it's about leadership, about the industries that we're all working in. So just a fantastic week. And I'll probably put more of this on my LinkedIn and talk about it in a future podcast because I've really learned so much from students. And for all of you who I've spoken with this week, I appreciate the support of both the book and the podcast. And it's really amazing to get insight into how younger generations think and the issues that they're having with both, slipping into easy hard and finding their hard, and some of them hearing this concept for the first time. So just a tremendous week. So thank you to all that are listening, and you know who you are, and I definitely appreciate you. So today it's back to solo cast, and we're going to go to chapter 6 of the book, talking about self-monitoring. So if you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about self-evaluation, self-assessment. This is what happens after this, right? This is after you've come up with your path, where you want to go and how you're going to do it. And self-monitoring is then just the checking in to make sure that you're making progress. This isn't a time for deep contemplation or meditation on these things. It's not for planning. It is just a simple check-in. I like to refer to this as you're driving across the country and occasionally you'll look at the map to make sure you're going on the right path. The map doesn't tell you how many miles per gallon you're getting, how many miles you've driven, how many miles you have left to drive. It's just a simple check-in to make sure you're on the right path. You don't want to be headed from where I live in Virginia to Texas, only to find out, after a couple of days that you're in Maine. Obviously, you've been going the wrong way. So if you had a little bit of self-monitoring in this case, you notice that, hey, I'm going north versus going west and south, and you would make the corrections appropriately, right? This is a very gentle check-in. This is something you can do daily. I recommend daily at first, weekly. This is where, the whole concept of making 1% improvement comes into play, because you can't really measure 1%. You just kind of feel it. Did I move forward? Did I move backwards? And then sometimes you move backwards in order to move forwards, right? So self-monitoring is just that constant check-in with yourself to make sure you're going. Now, if you continually find yourself moving backwards or slipping into easy hard, then yeah, you go back to the other phases and you do more self-analysis, self-evaluation to figure out. But self-monitoring is not about looking backwards like the other two are. This is about looking forwards. Are your eyes on the prize? Another thing self-monitoring isn't, it's not metrics based, right? Because especially when you're early in your process of moving towards your hard, metrics, I found, tend to discourage you. You're not making the numbers. You're not, seeing the rapid growth that you were expecting. And this could be because of two things. Number one, maybe you kind of over exaggerated, how much progress you would make. And then if you're not making that progress to the numerical value that you wanted, then you're going to get discouraged. And also, taking metrics too early doesn't give you enough time to, do the work and make the changes that you need. Like, again, going back to if I want to run a 4-minute mile example, if I was going to run, if I was initially running 8 minutes and then the next day I checked it and it was 8:02, or let's say you even improved it a little bit, you went to 7:50, that's discouraging because you're not ready for the 4-minute mile yet. You haven't done enough work. You haven't put in enough repetitions to get you to that place. So measuring at this point is not what you want to do. At some point, you can begin to measure, right? Most coaches will say what you can't measure, you can't track. Well, yeah, that's true to a point, but not when you're getting started. What I think is not spoken about enough is the whole self-monitoring piece, because self-monitoring is one of those things that you do, and it's subtle. It's where you're checking in with yourself. And as I said in a previous episode, you're going to know when you found your heart hard. You're going to know because of the way you feel, the sense of achievement you have every day, and you're gonna you're just going to get that feeling, right? You're going to become more efficient, effective with your time. All the things that we've talked about, you're going to get. So measuring would impede that at this point, right? So just a simple, you know, monitoring of where you're at is all we're asking here. So the author of Atomic Habits, James Clear, has a wonderful quote that I heard a long time ago, but it started making sense when I came up with this easy hard versus hard hard theory. And he says self-monitoring isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest enough to notice when you're off track. So notice what we're saying here. It's not about perfection. It's not about measurement. It's just, are you on track or are you not on track? So it's really that simple. But to get into it a little bit more, you know, again, let's go back to that map analogy. You're just glancing. You're just making small little looks at it. You know, let's say you even have the GPS on in your car. You're not looking at it. Like, let's say you get on an interstate that says, 154 miles go, will be your next exit. You're not looking at it every minute. You're not looking at it every second. You're looking at it every so often just to say, okay, where am I at? Where am I going? Because the mind is curious. But at the same time, if you kept looking at it every second, every minute, it would make the trip much longer, right? It's that whole adage of, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Well, self-monitoring is just, hey, make sure I did this. Sometimes the roads split, sometimes maps aren't updated or whatever. Just making sure you're going in that general direction. Again, it's awareness. It's not a spreadsheet. It's not metrics. It's not all these things that the human mind wants to measure, because again, we're so pre-programmed that with that whole concept of what you measure, you can track. This isn't the time for it. That'll come later. One of my favorite podcasts to listen to, other than mine, of course, is the one by Mike Rowe called The Way I Heard It. And one day he had someone on there, and Mike made the analogy that you don't want to find out you're in the wrong place in the middle of the lake. Because if you're in the middle of the lake and you're going the wrong direction, think of all the time, effort, energy you spent just to get out there, right? So the self-adjustment allows you to see where you're going, make sure you don't go too far with it, and then just check in and make sure. It's like a course correction. It's not a crisis at this point. It's just awareness. But again, like I said earlier, if you see yourself going in the wrong direction over and over again after a week or two, it might be time to then say, okay, my path wasn't right. Or maybe you've slipped back into easy hard and you didn't know it because, you were seeking approval, or you were full of self-doubt, or became self-anxious about what you were doing. Again, all change takes time. I can't say that enough. So you've got to be patient with yourself. But the best way to monitor where you are is through self-monitoring. I know it's using the same word twice there. So how are some of the ways that we can do this? Well, there's always the daily micro check-in, I like to call it. You can ask yourself, is today's actions moving me forward, moving me closer to my goal, or did I slip up? And again, once you start seeing these patterns, and patterns can be, the progress that you're making, the progress that you want to make. It could be how you're emotionally dealing with the situation, how tired you feel. And then you can start observing based on your monitoring, like what's causing it. Like if you didn't get as much done one day, but then you were just monitoring yourself and you're like, oh, well, I had a terrible night's sleep last night, or, a friend came into town and, I spent time with them instead of doing this. There's little things like that come along in our lives that are normal. And as long as we are not harsh on ourselves, those normal things are okay, right? You can give a day or two away to a friend that came in unexpectedly, because that probably is something you needed, right? That connection, that energy that friend provided you may surpass whatever work you were trying to do, whatever changes you were going to make. Now, again, I'm not saying that if you're trying to lose weight and, you just go and blow your diet for 3 or 4 days. I'm not saying things like that. I'm saying sometimes replacing the actions and behaviors that we do on a given day, life throws us curveballs, right? So just be gentle with it. A lot of people, when they want to make a change, they want to go all in. But what they don't realize is that where they got to didn't happen overnight, nor will the change. Oftentimes, change will take longer than the change it took to get you to where you are. Because, like I said, your mind's programmed, it's trying to protect you. It's telling you, oh, you don't want to do this. You've been doing it this way for years. Why would you want to start doing it this way? So that's a very important thing, is notice the patterns, but just notice it. Now, for some of you, you need to write it down, right? The science has shown us that if you write something, it is more effective than if you just say it or think it, because it instills it. You can write, you write much more slowly than you speak. So sometimes the physical act of slowing it down. So in this case, sometimes maybe some people, you did need a journal and take quick notes on your monitoring, but again, I want you to keep it very, very simple. Ask yourself a couple questions, what went right? What didn't go right? Where was I off a little bit? And then where do I need to realign the next day, the next week, whatever it is. Earlier, we talked about accountability and how you should have accountability or a coach or mentor. Again, this isn't the time for that, right? This is your self-monitoring. And this is where you need to be, because again, when you go to a coach, you go to a mentor or a partner in these cases, that's for the major corrections, right? That's after you've completed, let's say you're going to run 20 miles. Maybe you go back to them at mile 5, mile 10, mile 15. Again, I don't know. It's whatever's appropriate for what you're doing. But again, if you monitor and you start finding that you're off the path a little bit, this isn't the time to bring in all your resources and try to fix it, because you've got to learn to do this alone. All change is self-derived. Only you can make a change. Any coach, any mentor who tells you otherwise is probably not one that you want in your life. You really have to commit to the change, and you have to develop the ability to know where you are and where you're going. And, you can bring in, a trusted partner occasionally, but don't rely on them. Don't rely on them, because this is your journey and you've got to figure it out. And if you did the self-evaluation, self-assessment earlier, you know where you need to go. You have that desire. You know your end state. You know where you're going to go. So just bring in accountability when needed. Some people need it more than others, but don't over rely on it. Don't use it as a coach. All right. So some of the traps of self-monitoring is self-monitoring. Don't use it as a micromanagement tool for yourself. You don't need to look at every little thing you're doing. Again, you're learning something new. So go with the flow. You certainly don't want to develop bad habits, but if you do a daily self-monitoring, you're not going to develop those self bad habits, because you're going to see where your performance is. You're going to see where you're going, and you're going to do it. Another thing is, again, like I said, don't obsess over metrics or judge your performance. This isn't the time for it. Metrics will come. Trust me. In my 180-pound weight loss journey, people ask me all the time, what was the greatest thing that you did? And it was consistency. So if I was obsessing with the scale every day, every hour, I hear some people weigh themselves 5 or 6 times a day. The body fluctuates, right? So does performance. Some days are going to be better than others. Some days are going to be worse. That's just human nature, right? Like I said, there's all these outside elements, like the food you eat, how hydrated you are, how much sleep you got, all those things come into play here. So don't obsess over metrics at this point. And then another thing to be on the warning side is make sure it doesn't bring you anxiety, because this isn't the time to introduce anxious thoughts, more self-doubt. You just want to notice where you are and where you want to go. All right. So what can you do this week? All right. So this week, I want you to start doing some small self-monitoring. Don't start with a lot of time. Just, let's say every night when you go to bed, take a quick mental note. Hey, did I do what I wanted to do? I talked about the 3 things that I set for myself every day. So what would self-monitoring look like for that? So I can either say, yes, I did these 3 things. No, I didn't. That's simple. And then maybe the next morning, you would then do a little bit more self-monitoring and say, okay, well, I didn't do these 2 things yesterday. So Do I need to make them the first two things I do today? Do I need to add them to my list of three, or was I not ready for them, or whatever? Sometimes we try to force change so much that we actually inhibit the change. So you're going to start getting a flow for this. So initially, just take, 1 minute. I don't want you to take 5-10 minutes, because then you're going to measure that time and like say, oh, well, it only took me 3 minutes today. I must be doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong as long as you're checking in with yourself. And again, this is where you start saying, am I moving toward the life I want, the change I want, the desired, outcome of where I am? And then what did I do today that was good? What did I do today that brought me away from that? Again, that reminder one sets you up for the next day, and it gives you just a little bit of a win, a victory, because you're going to start finding when you do these self-monitorings, you're going to get little victories every day. You're going to say, oh man, I didn't expect to do this, but I was able to do it. Again, these little small check-ins too will show you that maybe you just need a little detour. Maybe the road ahead has a bunch of potholes and you don't want to take your car on that. So you just take a detour. But maybe you do need like just a turn signal. It gives you the appropriate effort for the change you're trying to make. So again, do these little small micro check-ins and you're going to see massive results. All right. Self-monitoring will turn your reflection, your little periods that you take, into momentum. The more you start seeing progress, the more excited you're going to be, the more energy you're going to have, and the more faith you're going to have in the approach that you've got. Like I said, when you do the self-analysis, self-evaluation, and you lay out that path, you're going to have confidence in it. At first, it's going to feel weird, right? It's something brand new to you. It's not something that you've done every day. So be gentle with yourself. Again, the key to the easy, hard versus hard method is you've got to be gentle with yourself. Now, don't be so gentle that you start reaffirming all your bad habits or reaffirming the easy, hard, but be gentle enough that you can nudge, take satisfaction in the victories, and then take caution with the things you didn't do right, and then work on those the next day to try not to do them again. Eventually, you're going to start seeing where to put your energy and your effort and what you can do to improve upon that. All right, so this gets us through self-monitoring. Again, we go into more detail in the book about this, and I really talk about metrics and how metrics can lie to you in the book. And maybe I'll bring that up in the next episode, or we'll move on to taking action. But again, these are all parts of finding your hard. So the self-monitoring, like I said, it's gonna be your guide. It's your compass. It's your map. You're just gonna check it, keep moving. Check it, keep moving. Later on in the taking action, we'll talk about when metrics are appropriate and how we bring those into our lives. Because until you do some work for a period, you really don't know what you're doing. And I know that sounds a little disheartening, but you're going to learn it. You're going to learn it. So the key, especially in the beginning, be gentle, be patient. You can do this. I know you can. If I was able to do it, anyone can do it. I'm just a normal guy. There's nothing special or, different about me. I'm not an outlier in any way. It's just I showed up. I learned that by monitoring my performance, monitoring my actions and behavior each and every day helped me so much. And again, being kind to myself. We talked about, positive self-talk. It's one of the elements of self-leadership. Be gentle with yourself. Do not be harsh on yourself. The harder you are on yourself, the harder it's going to be to recover and keep yourself on the path. And I tell you what, I am a living example of being too hard on myself for too long, slipping back into that easy hard, and then having to start this whole process up again. So again, take it slow. I know I've said it a lot, slow, and you will get there. I have faith in you. And again, I'm always here for questions. I'm here to be your guide. I'm here to support you. And I applaud everyone who's taken the journey. Like I said, so many people have come to me and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. And please, if you're one of these people, keep giving me updates. This is exactly the feedback I want. Make this process better and really start a movement, because I truly believe that once more people start finding their heart hard and going after the work that matters to them, the world is going to be such a better place. We're going to remove all these distractions. We're going to remove all these things we fight about or may get stressed about because we're so focused on what we're doing. And once we know what we're going to do and we're confident that we can do it, we're going to be there to show up for others. We're going to be present. We're going to be able to make that person who's in front of us at that time the most important person in the world. And that's something that I heard in the conference this week, is that the most important person in the world is the person that's right in front of you right now. But to get that presence, to get that ability to be there for that person, you've got to be monitoring yourself. You've got to be improving. You got to make sure you don't fall into that easy heart again. I hope this was helpful, and I hope this brings you some more clarity onto the whole process and what we're doing. As always, if this was something that resonated with you, please pass it along, because again, the more people who know this, the better your life's going to be, the better your neighborhood's going to be, the better the world's going to be. I truly believe that. I think we're starting a movement here. Again, if we can all lead ourselves and we can all avoid easy hard, we're going to be able to be there. We're going to be the light in the world we all want to be. I truly believe in goodness, and most people want everyone to be happy. But again, make sure you're on your path, because until you take care of you, you will not be able to take up care of others. All right. Well, if you like this, please subscribe. I'm on Substack as well. So if you want the weekly newsletter, LinkedIn, pretty much all the social medias. And again, thank everyone for the comments, and keep them coming. And if there's something you particularly want me to elaborate on these episodes, I want to start doing it. Once I get enough of these, and it's really picked up in the past week, I'll start having a question and answer period and try to help, because in my mind, I know this is all clear because I lived it for so long, but I want to make sure it's clear. You're not in this alone. You've got me, you've got the community. Let's go out there and let's really start changing the world, because what the world now needs is love. And again, I know from my experience, loving yourself is the first step. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and thank you for the support. Thank you for those who've purchased the book and given me comments on that. I'm so grateful and honored and humbled that this message is getting out, and I appreciate and love every single one of you. Until next time, I'm Bobby Shelton. Keep chasing your heart hard and finding the work that actually matters to you.